Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome, fellow deplorables. Welcome, fellow dregs of society. I can't wait till what the liberals call us next. But welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network and around the world on Al Gore's amazing internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, AM, FM 24/7, Leading Edge Radio Network, and now you can see us on the AUN TV network in California. For rebroadcast of our shows, please check out our websites, ccrshow.com. That's for the radio version. The TV version can be seen at conservativecommandosradioshow.com, conservativecommandosradioshow.com. And Sharron, our first guest of the day is with us. Please make him feel welcome.
Well, it's always an honor to introduce our guest who's on our show many times, and we love having him, Dr. Gerard Lameiro, who is an author, philosopher, economist, and engineer. He's the author of 5 books and is a popular TV and talk show guest. His latest book, More Great News for America. Dr. Lameiro was a member of the 1980 Presidential Electoral College, personally casting one electoral vote for Ronald Reagan. Dr. Lameiro accurately predicted a Trump victory long before most pollsters and pundits gave Trump even a small chance of winning the presidential election. And Dr. Lameiro correctly predicted every state that candidate Trump actually carried in the 2016 election. Dr. Gerard Lameiro, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, it's great to be back with you. And by the way, it's looking now like my forecast for 2018 is actually going to come true in 2020. Believe it or not, I predicted a conservative red wave, and I will admit that. And by the way, as of election night, I had about 96% of the races correct. There are a few that changed hands later, so I still had a very high correct rating. But I didn't predict certain races, and the House flipped to Democrats. But I have since analyzed those data. I have looked in depth at a bunch of races, 71 races I looked at in depth last week. And I've come to the conclusion that what the voters did is they did not allow their love for conservative principles to get in the way of getting rid of the establishment Republicans. They have cleared the House of 30, if you will, not pro-Trump Republicans, establishment-type thinkers. We have lots of names for them: rhinos, Republican in name only, establishment Republicans, moderate Republicans. Years ago, we used to call it the Eastern Liberal Establishment of the Republican Party. Well, guess what? That Eastern establishment Republican Party is gone. So what I am now thinking is the Democrats will be replaced in 2020, and that's when the conservative red wave will finish sweeping over the House. Because obviously, this time around, there are a bunch of Democrats who won, but I think it's because Republicans refused to vote for people who broke their promise.
I think you're exactly right, Dr. Lameiro, but there is another little quirky thing that happens, and I had an exit poller friend of mine say you can't count cheating. And I think that we had some shenanigans. We had some shenanigans in several states, it looks like. So it's hard to predict when you have something that you can't control at all, where there's evil intent, if you will, with our elections. But by and large, you have been very accurate. And I believe that what you're stating is exactly true about the conservative wave. There was a conservative wave of non-establishment voters that went out and really did vote their choice and their value. Now, there is a small remnant of these Republicans in name only that have been left behind. And I know we have one in our state. We only have one Republican in our state that was elected, and he happens to be one of those. However, He claimed to be a Trump supporter and was very much pro-Trump. However, his voting record doesn't show that. Have you analyzed these voting records of these 30 that came in, or the ones that stayed that were that claimed to be Trump supporters? Does their voting record really reflect that, or was it just their rhetoric?
Well, there's several things going on. Let's face it, this is not quite as easy, believe it or not, as a presidential election, because the presidential election, all I have to do is come up with 56 election results. And do you know where I get 56 from? You get 50 states, those are separate elections, and then the state of Maine and Nebraska allocate electoral college votes by congressional district. So you not only have the statewide elections, but you've got to look at the individual. There's 5 congressional districts, and they split their votes. And then D.C. Makes number 56. D.C. is a separate election, although I'm not sure they need it. It always goes Democrat.
But that's your easiest prediction, right, Doctor?
That's right. That's the easy one. But at any rate, in those given situations, in some ways there's a uniformity across the country because everybody hears a lot of the same speeches and things like that. But with the House, there are also other factors. Money is a factor in some races. For example, I know one strongly pro-Trump person lost. He simply didn't get enough support from the Republican Party. And in addition to that, the opponent got a fortune from places like Planned Parenthood, the Nancy Pelosi. I think she has some sort of PAC or fund that she donates to. And so his opponent was somebody who was funded very highly, way more money. And so there was an issue of getting out the message that he was pro-Trump. But basically what I found was that in the House, 86% of those who were up for that held current seats that were either resigning or retiring, 86% of those went Republican. 86% of the ones who were pro-Trump won. Only 14% of those who were anti-Trump won. So there are a few left, but the electorate is slowly but surely clearing out all the liberals, all the establishment on both parties. Both establishment are on their way out, and they're replacing them with conservatives. So I think my prediction for 2018 was 2 years early, because I think a lot of these seats are going to flip back to conservatives because basically the electorate is telling us that they don't like socialism. And so Ocasio-Cortez is doing a great job of letting the whole country know how silly some of her thoughts are, like calling the migrant workers who are trying to bust through our wall equivalent to Jews and fleeing the Holocaust.
Right.
Utterly absurd comparison.
Well, when we dig a little deeper into this election, I want you first to name that one who lost, the pro-Trumper who lost, because that state, we may be in that state, certainly we're in their internet world, and we want them to be aware, because this person may run again just because he is a pro-Trumper and he, like you, believes he should have been elected. So I want you to name that person, and then I want you to dig deep into these ones that retired. That was an amazing thing. 40 retirements. What was that all about, and how did that turn?
Yeah, actually, well, first of all, I'll give you the answer to your first question. The one I was referring to is Peter Yu in Colorado's 2nd Congressional District, and he ran in the vacant seat of Jared Polis. So it was a Democrat-held seat, and the person who ran in Jared Polis, who became governor of Colorado, kind of, I don't know if you call him a socialist or a Marxist socialist or a Democrat socialist, but some sort of super duper liberal. But he ran against Joe Negussi, who was well funded by a lot of left groups, left people who support leftist candidates. And Peter Yu, very hardworking, entrepreneurial type business background, and that he didn't have a chance. He wasn't funded well. And I think that it's unfortunate that he didn't get his message out, because I think there are a lot more in Colorado's 2nd Congressional District that would have voted for him if they even knew what he stood on. Mm-hmm. But when somebody doesn't have the money to even get their message out, it's pretty hard. And by the way, I saw this across the country. Another example, Kate Arrington, a very nice lady from South Carolina's 1st Congressional District. That was Mark Sanford's old district. Mark got beat by Katie in the primary. He was sort of like a not Trump person. She was up against a Democrat who got 4-to-1 funding. So for every dollar she had, he had $4 more. And he sort of talked like he was going to support Trump. And I thought to myself, support Trump? He'll probably be voting to impeach him if he gets elected. But at any rate, the Democrat won in that district. And once again, I think some of the Republicans would not support her because they were more establishment Republicans. And I put Mark Sanford into that category. Maybe disagree with me, but I think he was establishment. And so we have this going on in plenty of places. Now, in terms of you mentioned retirement. The correct number is 28 House Republicans retired, 14 resigned. And the 14 who resigned all resigned to go for higher office. So in other words, they were going to run for senator or governor, that sort of thing. And so 42 were the ones who just basically gave up on the House. They weren't going to come back, either retired or resigned. Out of those, it was amazing that the pro-Trump people did very, very well. And that was not true of the ones who were against Trump and his policies. And once again, I think the electorate said, well, you remember at the time when George Herbert Walker Bush said, read my lips, no new taxes. Yes. And then when he got into office, he raised taxes. Well, then he didn't get reelected. I think a lot of Republicans were just plain upset that repeal and replace was like their number one mantra during the election of 2016. First thing they're going to do in office on the first day is get rid of Obamacare. They never did it. Mm-hmm. A lot of them didn't support the tax cuts. The list goes on where a lot of people said this is an inactive Congress. Well, instead of just putting them back in office again, basically they either stayed home, didn't bother to vote, and certainly we're not going to put them back in office. And I think this is the way the voters are getting rid of the establishment Republicans. They kicked them out of office.
We're talking with Dr. Gerard Lameiro about the election and how it was truly a Trump victory. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM FM 24/7. We'll be right back with our guest, Dr. Gerard Lameiro, with our in-studio co-host, Rick Trader, and I'm Sharron Engel.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving, and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharron Angle. Yes, that's Sharron Angle, and yours truly, Rick Trader. And we would like to give a shout out to the folks who listen to us on stations in Jacksonville, Tampa and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster and Pittsburgh, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Milwaukee, Long Beach, California, and now broadcast as part of the AUN TV network in Northern California. Our guest this segment is Dr. Gerard Lameiro. He is an author, philosopher, economist, and engineer. His latest book is More Great News for America. Dr. Lameiro, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time. Dr. Lameiro, one thing I've got to ask you, please don't make fun of Cassia Ortiz. I'm so happy she won. She's going to give us a lot of entertainment, at least for the next 2 years. I hope that seat never flips. I hope she's there for the next 30 or 40 years just for the entertainment value alone. So,
Rick.
Please be kind to her.
Believe it or not, I talk to people all over the country, and somebody a few hours ago told me they hope she becomes speaker.
Oh, no.
She's the comedic gift that just keeps on giving, keeps on giving. Dr. Lameiro, the other good thing, I'm thankful that you didn't say, you said you have to follow 56 races and not 57. I'm glad you... Of course, maybe Barack Obama would want to know where you were missing, but you didn't miss there, too. Dr. Lameiro, do you think Donald Trump, I know he did a lot. He did a lot for the Senate. He did a lot to preserve the Senate. Do you think he could have done or should have done a little bit more for the House?
Well, there were 30 people he could have gone out and supported, but they didn't support him. So one, why should he support them if there's no reciprocity? But number two, maybe he'd just as soon see them leave. And by the way, now, when they start blaming things like the economy isn't going up as fast in 2020, he's got an automatic out because he can say, Maxine Waters is in charge of the financial committee, and the Democrats are the ones who have been in the way and resisting ever since I got elected in 2016. Now, I think this is going to segue into a conservative wave next time around, because I think we're going to pick up another few senators that are conservative, and I think we're going to pick up probably 25 seats in the House that will be conservative. Really, the conservatives are the ones who won. And when people say the Democrats won this election, I say no, the Democrats didn't win this election in the House. The House Republicans of the establishment variety, the establishment Republicans, lost it. They clearly lost 30 seats. And by the way, if you take those 30 seats, had them all 30 of them been Trump supporters, I think we'd still be holding the House, because 30 votes would swing it the other way right now. The Democrats would only have 203 seats, which isn't a majority. You need 218. So I think those 30 seats that we lost were establishment seats. And as someone said on Facebook to me a few days ago, Trump's cleaning the swamp. The House just got cleaned.
Well, a lot of them went, including Mia Love.
Right. And she was out complaining today.
Was she?
Well, yeah, she was out knocking Trump and saying Trump doesn't have relationships with people. He just has transactions.
Well, Dr. Lameiro, I'm not a big believer that our president has to be the most popular. He has to be the person who's going to put America first. But Mia Love, let's just talk about Mia for a minute. She ran and she got elected as a Tea Party candidate. And then the first thing that she did, the very first thing she did when she got to Washington was to vote for John Boehner as Speaker. So what I'm getting at is some of the people who ran as Tea Party actually, when they got to were everything but Tea Party. Are these the people that got cleaned out of the swamp?
Yeah, the people who lost are the people that didn't support the agenda that President Trump campaigned on and was in the process of trying to deliver, and delivered as best he could with a House and a Senate that really were working against him. I think from the very beginning, people like Paul Ryan, who, by the way, is gone, and that, or at least as of January, he's gone. Those kind of people that didn't, enthusiastically support the conservative agenda lost across the board. Mm-hmm. And there's a few remaining Republicans who'll have to lose next time, but the voters basically got rid of most of them. And those who supported Trump were enthusiastic, went out there. Unless they were not funded, they won.
Yeah. Dr. Gerard Lameiro, flips. In your research, have you found any seats that where the congressman or senator might change parties? For instance, Joe Manchin was one that I thought. Could you foresee any either senator or congressman flipping parties?
I don't see anyone in the House and the Senate. I kind of doubt it, because having had the House go Democrat, I think people like Manchin would be nervous that if they switched Republicans, they might be on the outside next time. Mm-hmm. But the reality is we're going to hold on to the Senate for a long time, and the House is a temporary 2-year setback. But in the long run, it was an effective strategy for how do you clean the swamp. I mean, how do you get rid of people who don't support the president, who give the president a hard time, who vote against proposal after proposal, who vote against things like solving the crisis on the border, the immigration reform? How can you deal with people like that? I think the electorate is a whole lot smarter than any of the politicians, because the American people are smart and they know they weren't getting things. They had promise after promise after promise that were conservative sounding promises, including Mia Love and that in Utah. And they basically were fed up with it and said, I'm not wasting my vote. And a lot of people were not wasting their vote. And you also mentioned about the fact that their vote theft. Well, believe it or not, in my modeling, I include a factor for trying to say how many illegal votes are cast. Mm-hmm. But what I now have to add is how many illegal votes come after the election. Because right now, it's not just the votes that come during the election that can be off, but the counting can be off. For example, the thing that really got me was when somebody found a whole box of ballots in the trunk of a rental car in Fort Lauderdale, in their Fort Lauderdale's airport. Where did those ballots come from? Why were the chain of custody broken, or were they flying them in for the election to get counted? Did they determine they needed 8,000 or 10,000 votes and they flew them in? Is there like some company somewhere else that does this job and get paid? It gets paid by somebody to send them to the appropriate election office. I don't know.
Right.
But there's certainly the circumstances are suspect, and there may be even up to 8 different election House or Senate that were actually turned on these recounts.
Wow.
And we have to really work hard on voter ID in every state, because now we're not going to get it passed nationally because the Democrats are there. We need to pass in every state we can if we want to have fair elections, because that is vital.
Dr. Lameiro, were you always pro-Trump, or when did you get on board with Donald Trump?
Well, I'm always the most conservative I can find.
Right.
And when there were 17 candidates for office, I thought the number one most conservative ideologically was Ted Cruz. So I started with Ted, but then when I saw that it was going to be obvious Trump was going to be the nominee, then my thought was, well, I guess that's what the American people are picking. And they picked him because they wanted somebody really tough to deal with the other side. Mm-hmm. And as nice as Ted Cruz is policy-wise, I think Trump is handling people much better on that side. I mean, he calls them out all the time. But I am a long-term conservative. I was conservative when I was in high school, and I've been conservative ever since. And I do separate my numbers from my conservatism because I try to give accurate forecasts and then when people ask me to analyze situations, that's different. Then I switch to conservative, not just a number cruncher.
Dr. Lameiro, you have one up on me because actually my first vote was for George McGovern. So you see where I see where I was, and you see how far I have come. Dr. Lameiro, we want to thank you for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work, read your writings, buy your book.
Well, my website is greatnewsforamerica.com, greatnewsforamerica.com. My latest book is More Great News for America, and I just started my 6th book, which is going to be on elections and how to make them honest.
We need that. Boy, do we need
we do.
that. What's the ETA for that book?
We're hoping it'll be out May 1st.
May 1st? Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Dr. Gerard Lameiro, we want to thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
God bless you too and all your listeners.
Thank you. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
And thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show. My co-host today is Sharron Angle, and I am Rick Trader. And for rebroadcast of our shows, please check out our websites. For the radio version, please go to ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. For the TV version, it's conservativecommandosradioshow.com. And Sharron, we have a longtime friend back with us. Please make that introduction.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to introduce Dr. Gerard Lameiro, who is an author, a philosopher, an economist, and an engineer. He is the author of 5 books and is a popular TV and talk radio show guest. Dr. Lameiro accurately predicted a Trump victory long before most pollsters and pundits gave Trump even a small chance of winning the presidential election. Dr. Lameiro correctly predicted every state that candidate Trump actually carried in the 2016 election. And his latest book is More Great News for America. Dr. Lameiro, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Great to be back with you. I love your show.
Thank you. Well, we love your forecasts, and we're here to ask you about this latest one. You have an early forecast for the 2020 presidential election, and we want to know who you think is going to be in the running.
Well, that's a very interesting question. And by the way, this is 2 years out, so there are many factors we can't take into account, but we're taking the long-range trends and the things that are going on that we do know about into account. I can go right to the bottom line and tell you who I think is running and what I think the results will be in the Electoral College. And by the way, you might know that I also have firsthand electoral college experience because I was a member of the electoral college for Ronald Reagan. I worked on his campaign in 1980, and I cast one electoral vote for him and one electoral vote for George Herbert Walker Bush for vice president, because you also get to vote separately for the vice president. But at any rate, right now, my early forecast for 2020 shows 3 candidates running. Donald Trump, not surprisingly, Mitt Romney as an independent, and the third one, the Democrat nominee, is former First Lady Michelle Obama, which is going to surprise a few of your listeners. And the Electoral College vote, which I just did, I think it was this week, we calculated it, 367 electoral votes for Donald Trump, 171 for Michelle Obama, 0 for Mitt Romney.
Zero.
Zero.
Zero. Do you think he'll still run after your prediction? That would kind of chill my desire to run. I think if I knew that I was only going to get 0.
Well, I'll tell you, he signaled he was running in the Washington Post op-ed that appeared the day before he was sworn in. And just think what he did. The man who supported him, the head of the Republican Party and his party, he goes and attacks in a lengthy op-ed, which I thought was totally uncalled for and inappropriate, but it signaled a clear line in the sand that he's planning to be on the other side of Donald Trump. And the only reason one could do that at this stage in his career is if he's running for president. He has, according to my numbers, between 5 and 9% probability of getting the nomination away from Trump, so he's not going to get the nomination in the Republican Party. His only possibility is to essentially run as an independent. And he could easily do that, maybe run with Bloomberg, maybe run with somebody else like Howard Schultz, maybe John Kasich. We don't know who he'll run with, but right now it looks like he's running.
Well, we saw this when Ross Perot ran, and we saw this third-party candidate come in and be the spoiler. And so that has left a negative taste in the elector's mouth ever since. You just don't run a spoiler campaign and come out of it looking very good. And it looks like your forecast is saying exactly that same thing. I was amazed that some of the Democrats that are so prominent right now, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, they didn't make the grade. Why is that?
Oh, well, there are a lot of good reasons. We can start with Hillary Clinton. People are just tired of the Clintons. They're tired of her. She ran a weak campaign, one that was very tiring. She could only go for a day or two, and she had to take 3 days off. And she was, falling when she's left one particular event. And people see her as old news, as a bad candidate, and as a proverbial loser because she keeps losing. That's not a good way to get a nomination. People are tired of Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden is similar. He doesn't have a real solid track record. He was able to win as vice president, but that's not the point of it. You want to see somebody who can run as a presidential candidate. And he also is perceived as sort of a dinosaur Democrat. He's old, his ideas are old, and a lot of the young Democrats and the young socialists, they think, oh, wow, this guy is not liberal enough, not even liberal, not socialist enough is the proper term, to run. So they don't like him in that reason either.
Well, so what happened to Bernie Sanders? I mean, I thought he was their hero, the socialist hero, or maybe Ocasio-Cortez. We've been kind of watching her action too, and thinking that she's a rising star. Yeah, a rising star, or Beto O'Rourke. There's 3 socialists here, and really Michelle Obama. I've never heard her classified as a socialist. She's a globalist for sure. But talk to us a little bit about those socialists. Too far left?
Well, in terms of winning the election, an outright socialist like Kamala Harris is going to lose almost immediately. She might be able to get 15-20% of the vote for the far left fringe that would vote for her, but not across the board, not in a lot of states. A lot of people, when they hear, Medicare for all, that she pronounces and that, they say, that sounds great. And then they say, well, do you mind if the taxes go up to pay for it? They say, oh, no. Then their ratings for Medicare for all goes down. If they say, are you willing to give up your doctor or your hospital or your current plan? They say, oh, no. So, a lot of these grandiose things about free cell phones for everybody, free transportation for everybody, free college tuition for everybody, they sound great. When you price them out, a lot of reality starts hitting. Even Howard Schultz, pronounced Democrat, indicated that socialism doesn't work, and it's not going to work here, and we can't afford it.
Well, good for him. At least he's seen the light. I'm thinking about Elizabeth Warren, too. Now, she's been kind of floated out there. It just seems like they've got a lot of people that they've been floating around, but they don't make your list.
Well, the problem is there are 36 people on the list. Okay, there are 8 official people who have said, I'm running, or have an exploratory committee of the 36. And between now and 2020, maybe we'll have all 36 come out. And every once in a while, somebody says they're not running. But there's an awful lot who are. But they basically fall into several camps. They fall into the dinosaur Democrats like Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders. They're old. Their ideas are old. They haven't gone anywhere. And they probably won't go anywhere. And they're too old and not liberal enough, according to some of the younger folks. So they've got a problem. Then on the other hand, you have the outright socialists. I mean, they want a single-payer health care so that we can have the same kind of quality life that Venezuelans now experience. We too can eat dog food. and people are going to come to realize that, the grandiose plans, the price tag on Medicare for all, which I don't think will work, and that is about $36 to $40 trillion over 10 years. Believe it or not, and the question you need to ask Kamala Harris, or any of us need to ask, is where are you going to get the money from? Are you going to print it and have mega inflation? Or are you going to cut the entire rest of the budget to pay for it? Cut out everything else, including a defense budget? Or are you planning to go to China, hat in hand, and say, we need to borrow $40 trillion from you because we don't have that money here? So they are totally unrealistic, and anybody with any sense of economics will call them on the carpet. And that's what happens, and that's what's going to happen. And I think that ultimately they're going to lose in 2020, not only because Trump is doing a good job, will continue to do a good job, the wall is going to be built, or it's going to be tied up in courts for a while, but it's still going to get built. And ultimately, a winning formula with a strong economy is much better than grandiose, utopian ideas that aren't going to work, because we have a lot more evidence that socialism fails in theory and in practice than anything they can say to the contrary.
Well, unfortunately, we have to go to a break before I can ask my ultimate question, which is why Michelle Obama.
No,
but I'm going to.
Sharon,
you want me to ask that one before we go to the break?
Before we go to the break, yeah.
Well, the obvious thing is it's a replay of Barack Obama, the race card. Is that why Michelle Obama, or why Michelle Obama? Does she come to the surface now? It seems she'd be old news as well, and we're not too into dynasties here in America.
Well, I'll answer it, I think, after your break, right? You don't want me to answer it now?
Answer it now, please do.
Oh, okay. Well, believe it or not, she, relative to some of the 36 and that, she actually has somewhat of some strengths, at least perceived from the socialist side of the fence. They know she's on their side. they know she doesn't really like America, so that's a plus from those people's mind. And she has the benefits of Obama and all his contacts, his fundraising capability, the infrastructure and connections. He's got a lot there. And that he's got a lot of deep state type help as well. So she's strong in that sense, but she's also strong if you take a look at something. And that is she's got a message that's resonating with the more leftist folks around the country. For example, she wrote a book not long ago. It sold 3 million copies in the first 30 days. That works out to be one book every second. And let me tell you, a lot of people buy my books, but I don't sell one book a second. I wish I did. Excuse me. By the way, I talk, all over the country. I do up to 500 shows a year. So this particular month, I've been on so many shows, I'm starting to get a little hoarse. So I apologize for that.
Well, we'll let you take a break now,
Okay.
and I'll let Rick ask his questions on the other side. We're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. We'll be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
Staying with us, this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Angle, and our guest is a longtime friend of the show, Dr. Gerard Lameiro, and his latest book is More Great News for America. Dr. Lameiro, thank you for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, let me finish saying a few things
Sure.
about Michelle to finish answering your question. And one thing about Michelle is she has adamantly said she doesn't want to run for president. But it appears under the surface that they're actually preparing. And part of that book sale was what you do for a presidential candidate. You sell a book.
Yeah.
And hers were very popular, this particular book, among the leftists. And let me point out something, too, that's interesting about the book. And that is that it has sold more than any presidential memoir, which is pretty interesting, the speed at which it's sold. So
Right.
she does have support among the far left.
Right. Dr. Lameiro, you as a pollster and someone who observes these candidates, isn't that the prerequisite that you can judge when somebody is running? They put out a book about 2 years before the election?
Yes. Let me correct one slight thing you said, and that is I'm not a pollster. I don't do polls. What I do is forecast models, which are based on variables and data, some of which goes back quite a while. And it's a different approach to election, discussion. Pollsters, they call 1,000 people, they superimpose it on their demographic model, and they come up with numbers. I do forecasting based on trends and different things, and I think it's more accurate than polls.
Well, I'm not going to argue against your accuracy. And I love telling this story. And Dr. Lameiro, the day before the 2016 presidential election, we had you on and you predicted that Donald Trump would get 311 electoral votes. And I got to be honest with you, Doctor, I was a little skeptical because I heard all the pundits, all the pollsters who predicted a Hillary Clinton landslide. And I just wish I would have run out to Atlantic City or Las Vegas that day and put money down on Donald Trump. I didn't. So I am not going to challenge your methods at all. Dr. Lameiro, so you said there are 36 potential candidates that will be running in 2020. I mean, will that be unprecedented?
I don't know. Technically, there have been elections where even 100 people have thrown their hat in the ring for president.
Wow.
But they're not like serious candidates. They're like, people that are just everyday jobs and they want to run. They say they're running, but nothing really happens. Mm-hmm. So having large numbers of regular citizens put their hat in the ring is not unusual. But serious candidates that have money, that are seriously trying to wrest the nomination from all the opponents, that's unusual. And certainly 2015, 2016, we had 17. We thought that was a lot. But right now, potentially, we've got 36.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, let's talk about people with money. Let's also talk about third-party candidates. We saw in 1992 what a third-party candidate did. Third-party candidate helped get Bill Clinton elected. We've seen what has happened in states like Virginia, in the governor's race, in the Senate race, where you had a third-party candidate. Well, there is, perhaps, in my opinion, I wanted to get your opinion, two potential third-party candidates here. One we talked about, Mitt Romney. The other is the former CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz, who is running and has made some speeches already. How do you think these two third-party candidates? And you talked a little bit about Romney, but can you talk about Schultz? Do you think that he could make a dent in this by running for president? You think that he will pull votes away from the Democrat candidate?
Yes, if he does run as an independent, he will take votes away. So will Mitt Romney. But Mitt Romney won't get any electoral votes, and neither would Howard Schultz. The problem with Howard Schultz, look at the reaction he got this week. He practically booed off the stage, and the Democrats see him as a spoiler for sure. They don't realize Mitt Romney's running.
Well, maybe we Republicans should throw a little support his way.
Well,
at least until the election day.
Well, I think that some have done that already. They've let it be known that they think it's nice that he's out there and is a more moderate Democrat, because he's not quite off the deep end. I don't think he's a socialist full-blown like a lot of the others. And so there has been a little support thrown in his direction, little talking points and that. No major support that I know of. But I do not think he could possibly win. He thinks that because the Democratic Party is so badly positioned now and positioning itself as this force of big obstacle to the wall, obstacle to everything. I mean, they're getting a really negative viewpoint. They've got people in the Democratic Party now that seem like they support Hamas. They have people that seem like they're just plain radicals and extremists. And certainly some are Marxist, socialists, and maybe some of them are even communist. And the American people pick up on this stuff. They're going to have 2 years with people like Pelosi and Ocasio-Cortez saying crazy things like raising
Don't you love her?
70%.
Doctor, don't you love her? Ocasio-Cortez? She's so entertaining for me. I mean, hey, doctor, I wanted to talk with you about two other money bags that have made some noise about running. One is Bloomberg, the other is Tom Steyer. What's your opinions on those two?
Well, I think Tom Steyer has indicated, at least for now, he wants to concentrate on impeachment. That's his big issue. So I don't think he's running. He's just going to throw his money toward impeachment, which is a good way to throw away money, because Donald Trump will not be impeached.
Right.
Well, if he is impeached, he won't be convicted, so he'll stay in office.
Right. What about Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg?
Okay, well, Bloomberg is another possibility to run as a running mate with Mitt Romney, or the other way around. It could be Bloomberg with Mitt Romney as the vice presidential candidate. Mm-hmm. So those two might team up as the independents. But I think it would be in the independent realm. And I think Bloomberg is very, very liberal, but I don't think he's quite as bad or as unrealistic as some of the people like Kamala Harris.
All right. Dr. Gerard Lameiro, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Conservative Commandos. Please tell our audience how they could follow your work and buy your book.
Well, my website is greatnewsforamerica.com. That's all one big word, greatnewsforamerica.com. I have 5 books that are selling all around the world, and they're both in print editions and also in Kindle. If you want to save some money and you like electronic books, they're available, and you can get them at Amazon or anywhere else that books are sold, although a lot of places you have to order them because they're not in stock. You know, they stock like the top liberal books, and then the conservative books you have to order.
Yeah, we found that out. Dr. Gerard Lameiro, again, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
God bless you, and I say God bless to all your audience, too.
All right. Thank you so much. And you are listening and watching the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharron Angle and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network.
Friend, do you remember when it felt good to withdraw your cash from the bank to expand a business, go on vacation, or buy a new car? Well, today, withdrawing your own cash has become a very risky business, according to The Secret War, a shocking new research report. I just read it. And folks, I was amazed to learn why banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any suspicious or unusual behavior. I suggest you get The Secret War free. Just call the number on the screen, no charge, from the folks at Swiss America. And get this, did you know simply spending cash today may be enough to have you branded as a potential criminal? That's right. The new war on cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. The Secret War is yours free, so call the number on the screen and you can tell them Pat Boone gave you the number.
And this is the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Angle. And once again, for rebroadcasts of our shows, place to go is our website, ccrshow.com. That's ccrshow.com. You can listen to our radio show there, watch our TV show there. We have a lot of great articles, a lot of great information. I'm sure you'll enjoy it also. Check it out, ccrshow.com. Especially if you're just used to listen to us on our radio shows, check out what we look like on TV. I'll be a shock. Sharron will be a pleasant surprise. And with that, Sharron Angle, our next guest, is with us. We always enjoy having this gentleman. We always learn from him. Please make the introduction.
Well, it is always a pleasure for me to introduce Dr. Gerard Lameiro, who is an author, a philosopher, an economist, and an engineer. He's the author of 5 books and is a popular TV and talk radio show guest. Dr. Lameiro was a member of the 1980 Presidential Electoral College and personally cast 1 electoral vote for Ronald Reagan for President of the United States of America. Dr. Lameiro accurately predicted a Trump victory long before most pollsters and pundits gave Trump even the small chance of winning the presidential election. Dr. Lameiro correctly predicted every state that candidate Trump actually carried in the 2016 election. His latest book, More Great News for America, is available at Amazon.com and other retail outlets. Dr. Lameiro, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
It's great to be with you,
well,
as always.
And it's great to have you. Your ears must have been burning all week, because every time we mention Beto O'Rourke's casting his name into the 2020 pile of presidential Democrat candidates, we had to cite back to Dr. Lameiro made a prediction for 2020, and it doesn't include Beto O'Rourke. Does it include him now? Let's talk about those predictions.
I'll tell you, the presidential candidates that are lining up for the Democratic Party remind me of a movie I saw years ago, Star Wars movie, and they had the bar scene with all the characters. And this is a whole bunch of characters that are hard to believe, and the list keeps going on. You know, we have the Governor Hickenlooper from Colorado, former governor, with all of his sexual exploits. That was quite a revelation. We have Beta taking his mother to see Deep Throat, a porn film of notoriety.
Wow, I didn't hear that one.
And the list goes on and on about all the things that these people believe in, getting rid of, basically our economy by getting rid of fossil fuels. And the list is just phenomenally. These people are off the deep end in a major way.
Well, they need a major candidate if they think they can even hope to challenge President Trump. And you pulled one out on our last prediction. You said you thought it would be Michelle Obama. She hasn't even named herself yet. What's going on there?
Well, I think that she is a candidate because of her husband's position and connections. They have a lot of political connections, financial and organizational, all of which are needed to run a successful campaign. And you have her running against a bunch of strange lightweights, deep-end lightweights, that it's hard to think they can pull it together. I mean, they've been falling all over each other, making big blunders and sounding ridiculous. And even their own Democrats are questioning a lot of these candidates and where they stand. Another thing that's of interest to me is, Hillary would love to get the nomination, but she doesn't stand a chance. Joe Biden, who you would think stands a chance because he's ahead in some of the polls, although I question most of the results of the polls anyway, because I don't think they're doing them the right way these days, in my opinion, as one who studies numbers. Joe Biden says he's looking to see, he's sort of feeling the field and trying to decide if he's got support. I would say if he had support, he would have already thrown in his hat. I do not think he can raise the money that, for example, Beto O'Rourke, who's sort of a charismatic type figure, he's sort of a folk hero on the left. He's so radical that they sort of like him for some reason. But Joe Biden, who would be more representative of a little bit less extreme, although still very much on the left, I don't think he'll be able to get nominated as any others that even come close to being a more normal Democrat from historical perspective. By the way, one of the things Joe Biden wanted to do is recapture some of the working folks that the Democrats gave up when Obama was president. He just wrote them off, and they're still written off and supporting Donald Trump. So I think the Democratic Party is in deep trouble. I will give you another prediction today. I don't think I gave you last time because I've only figured it out in the last month or so, and that is that I've been predicting since 2015 the end of the Democratic Party as we know it. I think it'll officially close down in 2021. I now have a year that I peg for the end of the Democratic Party. But when I mean the end, I don't mean it's going to change their name to the
Socialist Party,
Democrat lightweights or something else. I think they're going to just shut down the party as we know it, because from history, every so often parties come, parties go. The Whigs were very successful for about 50 years, or maybe a little less than that, and they went away. You don't have a Whig running for office these days, and I think that the Democratic Party is coming to an end. I think this radical lurch to the left is going to finish them off.
And what will replace them? Do you think it will be these middle roaders, these middle establishment Republicans? What's going to take their place?
Well, I think the establishment Republicans are very upset right now because they've lost control of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is now a much more conservative party. It's going to continue to get more conservative in the next election, 2020. And I think they will abandon the Republican Party. And I see them as starting a Republican progressive, or they may give it another name, party. And they'll hope to pick up the Democrats who are disenfranchised from the radical Democrats of current day. So I think what's going to happen is the Democratic Party will go away completely, and in its place will be the Republican Party split between the conservative Republicans and the Republican progressives, or they may give themselves the name progressives, because they are. They're just a little bit... Progressive is a word meaning progressing towards socialism. The Democrats are already there. They're socialists. And Mitt Romney is close, but he's not quite as far an extreme. So I think that's what's going to happen. We're going to have two new major parties. That happens every once in a while in our history. And I think that's coming, and I think it's going to really fall into place in 2021 as a result of the next election, which is going to also move things much more conservative.
When you were on our show last time, you gave us an actual number prediction of the electoral votes, and that Mitt Romney will run as an independent, which really kind of runs along with your idea that these two new parties will emerge, and that would put Mitt Romney right in the right spot for that new party.
Right. Well, he knows he can't win the nomination. He'd love to take Donald Trump out himself and get the nomination. But right now, about 93% of Republicans support Donald Trump. So anyone who runs, be it Mitt Romney or John Kasich or anyone else, they're only going to get 5% or less in the primaries, and so they're not going to get nominated. So he's smart enough to know he's wasting his time, just like... for example, Jeff Flake knew he'd waste his time if he ran for senator last time around. And so he's not going to run on the Republican ticket. He's going to try to run as an independent, I think.
Well, and set himself up for maybe 2024,
or
right?
a new party.
Yeah, and the
or
new party.
You know, just to show you that this is really happening, think of Jeb Bush's recent statement. He said, it's time for a Republican to take on Trump. That means he doesn't consider Trump a Republican, and maybe he's not, because Trump is more conservative than the Republican establishment.
Well, maybe the new party are the conservatives. We have to take a break, and we're going to come back with our guest, Dr. Gerard Lameiro, who says he's an author, philosopher, economist, engineer, and we think prognosticator for politics in the 2020 cycle. And we're coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 27. For 24/7. And now you can watch us on our TV show on the AUN TV network in Northern California. We'll be right back with Gerard Lameiro, Rick Trader, and I'm Sharron Engel.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Thank you for staying with us. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Rick Trader. My co-host today is Sharron Engel. Yes, that's Sharron Engel. And our guest is a longtime friend of our program, Dr. Gerard Lameiro. He is an author, philosopher, economist, and engineer. He's the author of the book, More Great News for America. Dr. Lameiro, thank you for staying with us. Hold up that book so America can see it.
Okay.
There
Is that
it is.
good?
More great news for America. Thank you, Dr. Lameiro. And Dr. Lameiro,
I want to read the very bottom of it in case they didn't see it. The very bottom in parentheses is how and why the good guys win in the end.
That's great to hear, because a lot of people think the good guys can't win anymore, and Sharron and I both believe that they can do. Dr. Lameiro, we're discussing the 2020 presidential election updates, and boy, we've got a lot of characters. And you described the list of Democrats in this as kind of like a cast out of Star Wars. There was a cast, quite a cast in the 2020 election. Donald Trump came out of that one, obviously. And I wanted to ask you if you could compare Donald Trump to another president in history, maybe with this big personality, who would that be?
That's a very good question. I've never given that thought, so this is just kind of off the top of the head answer. I would say maybe Theodore Roosevelt.
Bingo! I mean, that's exactly who I was thinking of. You know, the big personality, loves being out in the public, loves to give speeches, a personality bigger than life. You know, Teddy Roosevelt was not liked by the Republican Party either. In fact, at the time he was made vice president, because at the time the vice president was that position in the closet. You want to get rid of somebody, you make him vice president. They didn't think that about a month after the election, the vice president would be made president. Teddy Roosevelt had problems with his party. So does Donald Trump. So that you and I are thinking alike once again. These lightweights, as you're calling them, coming from the Democrat Party, and you got a list of them here up on your website: Bernie Sanders, Beto O'Rourke, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren. I mean, they're quite a cast of characters. Hillary Clinton, you might add to that. And they all seem to be doing the same thing, Doctor, and that's running to the left, chasing this socialism that's rampant through the Democrat Party. You and Sharron were talking, and you said you're making another prediction that by 2021, we might see the end of the Democrat Party. And could there possibly be a separate from a lot of those people going to a moderate Republican Party? Could you possibly see two Democrat parties forming out of that?
No, I don't think so. There are a lot of reasons why over our 241-year history we've developed into a two-party system. And there have been multiple parties, but most of them are fringe parties that can't produce national candidates, can't produce a president in that. But they have a little bit of influence here and there. For example, the Green Party, we know about them. They took a few votes away over a few election cycles. There is currently something called the Socialist Party USA, and I think the Democrats are just basically trying to walk away with their agenda. And they're the Democrat Socialists of America, which is technically not a party, but it's, I believe it's organized as a 501c3. So it's like an organization, but not a party. I think that the Democrat Socialists of America might convert to a party, or these folks may just join the Socialist Party of USA or the Green Party or some other party they might create. But I think the proof of the pudding is going to be the House is going to go back. It's going to be more conservative than any time in our past history. In the last 40 years, this will be the most conservative House in 2020. The Senate is going to lose several, if you will, establishment Republicans. They will be replaced by conservative Republicans. So the Senate will be the most conservative we've seen. Donald Trump is going to win with over 360 electoral votes.
Wow. Wait, 360.
No, over 360.
Over 360.
My current number is 367.
Wow. I'll take, what's it take?
270.
71. But, over 360 is music to my ears.
Right. And basically, I think what's going to happen is the Democratic Party is going to shut down. But a vacuum needs sort of an opposition party. A minority party is not going to do that well to represent the others in the country who are not conservative. Most Americans are really quite conservative.
Right. Dr. Lameiro, we only got a couple minutes, and I wanted to throw this name into the conversation of Howard Schultz. He's the CEO of Starbucks. He has made noise about running. He said that the Democrat Party has actually left him. Do you think he's a serious third-party candidate or a potential candidate for the Democrat nomination? Can he be seen as a compromise candidate between the old Democrats and these new socialist Democrats?
Well, the current Democratic Party, radical as it is, socialist as it is, reject him outright. They do not think he lives up to their socialist standards. He's a little bit slightly American. That's tough for them to handle. He's also a capitalist. They don't like that. He actually made money starting a business, which is something they have a hard time with. No, I do not think he is going to be a Democrat nominee. I think they'll reject him. And as far as running on his own, I think he's going to have his arm twisted so badly that he's going to step out. His time for making a decision, he's already said, is the summer. I think you'll see him drop out in the summer. I'm sure he knows he can't beat Trump, and he can't get the nomination, so I think he'll just quietly go back to making coffee or whatever else he does.
All right, Dr. Gerard Lameiro, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. One more time, Doctor, hold up that book. And as you're doing that, please tell our audience how they could keep track of you and what you write, and also how they can get your book.
Well, they can get my book at any retail bookstore. The name of the book, obviously, More Great News for America. My website is More Great News for America. I'm sorry, my website is Great News for America. And I have 5 books on Amazon. And if all goes well, I'll have my 6th book out this summer.
Right. Well, we want to be the first ones to get it. All right.
Okay.
So make sure we get it. And obviously, we'll have you on many times before then. Dr. Gerard Lameiro, thank you so much for joining us. Take care and God bless.
You have a great show, and God bless you, and God bless your entire audience.
Thank you. We always love having you on.
Have you been leasing a property for your business or renting storage space? Are you tired of paying rent year after year? Call the experts at General Steel to own a building at up to 30% off now.
I'd been renting a building and paying someone else's mortgage, but General Steel showed me how I could own a space tailored to the needs of my business and for less than renting.
Call General Steel now at the number on your screen for our current building specials and to price your metal building system today.
My building's the dream I've had since finishing my house 14 years ago. I've been using it for a garage, workshop, and storage area for my tools and equipment, and I can't believe how great it turned out.
The economy is improving and the price of steel is expected to rise. Stop waiting. It could cost you thousands. Call General Steel now to see how you can own for less than you thought. Stop waiting to start your business or expand your operation. Call General Steel now.
Call 877-484-7002.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Once again, I'm Sharron Angle coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network with a shout out to our listeners in Jacksonville, Tampa, and the Villages, Florida, Las Vegas and Reno, Nevada, Macon, Georgia, Lancaster, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Boulder and Colorado Springs, Colorado, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Long Beach, California. We're everywhere, as Rick Trader says, we're everywhere. And we have our next guest. It's an honor to introduce Dr. Gerard Lameiro, who is an author, philosopher, economist, and engineer. He's the author of 5 books and is a popular TV and talk radio show guest. Dr. Lameiro was a member of the 1980 Presidential Electoral College and personally cast 1 electoral vote for Ronald Reagan for President of the United States of America. Dr. Lameiro accurately predicted a Trump victory long before most pollsters and pundits gave Trump even a small chance of winning the presidential election. Dr. Lameiro correctly predicted every state that candidate Trump actually carried in the 2016 election. And his latest book is More Great News for America, and it's available at Amazon.com and other retail outlets. Dr. Lameiro, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, it's great to be with you. Always enjoy it.
Well, I always love to have you on because you give us such great insight, but also some good predictions. I'm still waiting for Michelle Obama to throw her hat in the ring because you've predicted that she will actually be the one that will run against Donald Trump in 2020. And also on our last show, you said that we could expect the demise of the Democrat Party around 2021 because they've just absolutely gone too far. But today we want to talk to you about Bernie, Biden, and Buttigieg. Who's really ahead? Is that how you pronounce Mr. Buttigieg's name, or how do you say it?
I say it as Buttigieg, Pete Buttigieg. And I listened to a lot of people say it before I went on air with the pronunciation, just to be sure. And the one I took as most accurate was himself, because he introduced himself as Buttigieg on one particular interview. So I think that's correct, unless my hearing's off. But my hearing has actually been tested, and I've got incredibly good hearing. So I think that's right.
If he doesn't know how to pronounce his name, nobody does.
That's right.
Well, I did the same thing. That's why I said I think I'm pretty sure it's Buttigieg. So who's really ahead here of these three guys?
Well, this is still early. And by the way, I don't rule out Michelle. She popped up into my model in January. And I mentioned her this week in particular because another article came out by someone that is thoughtful, who also believes that she's going to get the nomination. So I'm not the only one who's mentioned her as a real possibility. It's still very early to make predictions. This is like forecasting a weather storm 3 months ahead. So it's a little bit early even for forecasters, especially when you have right now around 20 candidates, and we may get up to 28. And so there's a lot going on here, but what I'm giving you is a snapshot of the current forecast, which is still, I think, early and subject to change. I think by January, we should be pretty accurate, January of next year, as to who's going to get the nomination. And I think the polls, I've been studying the polls just because I always like to look at what models they're using underneath. And so far, I've seen some major polls that I think are way off base, and I think the results are very questionable. Some people that have been predicting Trump's, approval rating at 37%, I don't even think is close. So, but anyway, back to your question. Bernie, Biden, and Buttigieg all have particular strengths and weaknesses. None of them are a particularly good candidate if you put it up against Trump. And I say that even though I know polls are saying they're so close or Biden's ahead. I kind of was amused with the Biden's ahead by 8% poll. But there's other polls saying that, Buttigieg and Trump are neck and neck, and that these people are ahead of the pack of 20 candidates that are running on the Democratic side, but none of them are within striking distance of President Trump.
Well, that's interesting that you say that that you don't believe that 37%. What do you think Trump's positives are?
My approval forecast model of where he is and moving is at about 55%.
So much better than they're reporting, but that shouldn't surprise us, should it?
No, not at all, because I think the media exists to criticize Trump or anyone who's not a socialist.
Well, now you said each one of these guys, Bernie, Biden, and Buttigieg, all have their strengths. So talk to us a little bit. What are the strengths of each one of these guys?
Well, Bernie has a certain amount of momentum. He would have gotten the nomination if the Hillary Clinton nomination wasn't cemented with the superdelegates in 2016. If it were fair, Hillary Clinton was managing the money of the DNC back then, which, by the way, I believe is a campaign election violation, which has yet to be pursued. Maybe William Barr will take care. Attorney General Barr, we'll get this right, will take care of that along with a lot of other more serious possible crimes. But he does have momentum. He is the clear thought leader, believe it or not. I mean, everybody's copying him. I mean, Medicare for all, who said that? Free college tuition, Elizabeth Warren pushing that recently. But all they seem to be doing is copying him, and who's going to out Santa Claus, Mr. Santa Claus himself. And then I might also add, a very good article just came out today about Bernie and his Sandinista proclivities and his support of Sandinista. I mean, he sounds like he supports revolutionary communism, not just socialism. I think socialism might be the way to present it to people so they'll accept it. But anyway, he has that kind of strength. He does have a certain amount of strength among millennials in that. His policies are ridiculously economically flawed, but that's true of any of them. But that's his positive. Biden has positive in the sense that he has tremendous name recognition. He was vice president, so his name was up there all the time for 8 years. But he's got a lot of negative things going for him, Biden. He's Mr. Creepy. I mean, if you think regular, ordinary 50-year-olds think he's creepy, take a look at 20-year-olds. When they look at the videos, they practically get sick to their stomach. The younger people think it's grossly creepy, the things he's done. All you have to do is go on a college campus, if they allow you on, when you're conservative, and show a video of creepy Senator Biden or Vice President Biden. They get sick to their stomach. It's incredible how anti-Biden they are. And Buttigieg, he's the young guy, 37, so he has youth going in his favor and he was able to sort of turn on a lot of Hollywood people. One thing we haven't mentioned, but is of interest, is Beto O'Rourke, who had the early Hollywood lead. They had given him almost $70 million, or helped to raise that $70 million for him against Senator Cruz in Texas. They've dropped Beto O'Rourke. He's gone from the list. Kamala Harris was an early leader, but she's dropped these people dropping like lead balloons because they don't know how to campaign. They don't answer questions. They have certain strengths, but we don't know how long they'll last. I think one strength of Mayor Pete from Indiana is the fact he was a Navy intelligence officer. I give him credit for that. I mean, the guy had to have something on his head to get that kind of job. He also went to Harvard. Oxford, was a Rhodes scholarship winner. All those are good things. However, once you get to policies, he's in fantasy land.
Well, and it seems that Hollywood is just enamored more than with being a woman, more than being with a Hispanic, they're more enamored with the LGBTQ label. So they're kind of flying to that next best thing is the way it looks to me. We need to go to a break. We are coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and around the world on the internet with TalkStream Live, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, American Political Radio, Leading Edge Radio Network, and AM/FM 24/7. And now you can watch our TV show on the AUN TV network in San Francisco, San Rafael, Marin, North Bay, San Jose, Silicon Valley, Santa Rosa, Wine Country, Redding, Chico, Sacramento, Monterey, California, and soon in Carson City, Reno, and Tahoe, Nevada. We'll be right back with our guest, Dr. Gerard Lameiro, and his predictions about Biden, Buttigieg, and Bernie. That's right, 3 Bs in politics today. I'm Sharron Engel, and I'm joined with my co-host, George Landreth.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. Their prices are direct from the airlines, and they're so low you can't find these fares published anywhere. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and great package deals anywhere around the world. Wherever you want to go, they can help you get there cheaply and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call right now for the lowest travel prices anywhere and for great last-minute travel deals too.
Call 888-431-0562. That's 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562. 888-431-0562.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos. Of course, now the radio show and the television show carried on the AUN TV network, as well as on traditional broadcast towers for AM and FM radio. But of course, also carried all around the globe, with the possible exception of China and North Korea and Iran, on Al Gore's amazing internet. You can truly find us anywhere. So it's great to be with you. We've got, Dr. Lameiro, I'm glad you stuck around. I'm George Landreth. Of course, my co-host is Sharron Engel, and we're glad you're here with us because it's been a great discussion so far. I'll give a brief introduction to you, Dr. Lameiro, just because, in case someone just tuned in. But Dr. Gerard Francis Lameiro, he's a PhD, he's an author, he's a political analyst, he does forecasting, he's written 5 books. Just real quick, More Great News for America. That's his most recent. The earlier one, the prequel, I suppose, Great News for America, Renewing America and Its Heritage of Freedom, Choosing the Good Life, and America's Economic War. So all good reads. I think you can tell from the interview that he's thinking about a lot of things and has very interesting thoughts. Part of it may be because he has this interdisciplinary approach with a wide, just a lot of background in terms of a knowledge base. He doesn't just come at it with from one angle. So at any rate, thank you for sticking around, Dr. Lameiro.
Oh, happy to be with you. Enjoy it.
Absolutely. So let's just have, think about the, you look at we've got, 20 people are now running?
Yeah, I think there's about 20. There's, depends on how you count them, up to about another 8 that might still jump in. And I also believe Michelle Obama is a serious candidate, even though she's not announced.
Fair enough. No, I think you're probably right about that. I have some friends who've pointed that out. And she might be the toughest of the opponents. I have a hard time seeing someone like Cory Booker or you name him, Joe Biden being really that big a challenge. But she could present a challenge just because she might be viewed as kind of catching the same wave, as it were, that her husband caught. But I don't know what you think of that. What do you think? Is she formidable if she gets in?
I think she's the most formidable, to be honest. And the reason is she doesn't talk about anything. I mean, she's not saying, let's have the Green New Deal, and let's eliminate all cows, and let's eliminate all airplanes, and let's do all the other crazy things the socialists are saying. She's sort of a little bit like Barack Obama. She's in stealth mode. Before he ran for president, he voted present for different votes when he held office. And basically, he didn't want to say the things that he stood for because he probably would have never gotten elected or not nominated or elected. I think she's in the same line, and I think that Obama really wanted to continue, but he had this problem of the Constitution only allowing him to run twice. And this is a way to get his views in, because she has essentially his campaign money connections, and she has his political connections, and she has him, and they know the infrastructure, and they also know how to manipulate the office, because certainly the way the DOJ and FBI were run, we're getting to see, looks like it wasn't run very upfront. And by the way, I think they're facing some big problems in the next, and she would face this too, the fact that when the Attorney General Barr goes after the high-ranking people in the DOJ and the FBI, I think it's going to track right back to Obama and to his top aides, and I think that could be the reason she doesn't get the nomination.
You make a good point. I thought it was kind of revealing that Susan Rice on Inauguration Day sends this goofy email to herself. So, and it's
people who send messages after the fact.
And the message was basically, we did everything by the book. We did everything just right. Didn't violate any laws. Sure. It's like, why are you worried about that today?
That's right.
I mean, it's just kind of a weird email to send yourself.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's trying to document something. I think it's something like Comey did and others. They're trying to document something in case they were ever caught.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. So I do think that one of the things that I think Barack Obama was pretty good at, and I don't mean this as a compliment, he weaponized government against the citizenry. Whether it was the FBI or the DOJ or the national security apparatus, he made it acceptable to take some of the, if you will, legitimate functions of government, because obviously you need a national security agency that's keeping tabs on what the bad guys are doing and what their communications are and what the next bombing threat might be. But I think they clearly used it. I think we now know it was used, lies were used, falsehoods were presented to FISA judges, etc., to accomplish non-national security agenda items.
Political.
Yeah, political
essentially
stuff.
Attack your opponents, and of course IRS, I'm not sure if you mentioned that in the list, but that would be one too.
Oh yeah, the IRS makes Frontiers of Freedom, the organization I had, was targeted.
Yeah,
we were one of the targeted list groups in that, and that was, it had a real impact on us financially, and
absolutely.
That was the goal. They did exactly what they intended to.
Right.
They wanted to lock conservatives out of playing a role in discussing public policy questions during an important election cycle.
And to me, that's fundamentally undemocratic. It's unconstitutional, actually.
Yeah.
And it's undemocratic as well.
Yeah, it's totalitarian is what it is.
It absolutely is. Stalinist.
Yep. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about just in terms of, tell us who you think maybe the top 3 or 4 people that are at least currently in, or if you feel there's someone that's not currently in, that who might be some of the best, most formidable candidates that are likely to rise to the top.
Well, surprisingly, folks like Kamala Harris, who looked like she was going to be an early leader, she's dropped to the bottom. Elizabeth Warren had some support, but she seems to be losing it quite dramatically too. It looks to me like if you had to just strictly forecast based on the information today, including the various trends and variables that lie outside but are, if you will, predictable now, or you could use predictive analytics with, and you just want to make a forecast from today. okay, and it may change by January, it would be Pete Buttigieg is going to get the nomination, incompetency and all, because he fits a kind of profile of what Hollywood wants and what the Democratic Party base wants, and he's radical enough to get the job and maybe electable enough because of his approach. You know, he basically runs narratives and avoids policy.
Right.
And that's sort of like a good approach, because if you get into policy, you get into problems. Like the Green New Deal has one big problem that Hawaii has run into. When you eliminate airplanes, you have to build a high-speed train to Hawaii.
Yeah, that sounds fun. You know, one of the things something you just said kind of reminded me of. One of the things I think that Barack Obama did fairly well. He had one or two missteps where he kind of pulled down the curtain and revealed what he really was. But he tried very hard to sound very cerebral and non-radical and non-threatening, and not like he was some crazy leftist kook. Now,
right.
the Joe the Plumber comments, when he talked about spreading around, was not helpful to his cause. But aside from that, he really did a good job of hiding what his real agenda was.
Well, that's the socialist approach. And I might also add, it's also the communist approach. And many people, I was just on Bill Cunningham's national show on Sunday night, and Bill Cunningham said, you know, the communists, their whole approach is that socialism is one step on the road to communism. And he's bringing up the question about, are these people really communists? And they say they're socialists. That could be the case. You hide what you really believe, because if you said what you really believe, nobody's going to vote for you.
Yeah, that's the truth. Well, we're running up against the clock, so what I wanted to ask you to do is tell our listeners how they can follow your work, get your books, etc.
Right. I have 5 books that are currently in print, both hard copy and also electronic on Kindle. They can get them at Amazon if they know how to spell my name. Or they can go to greatnewsforamerica.com, greatnewsforamerica.com. I have somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 web pages on my website, so you can read a lot of stuff that's interesting for free, but you can also get the names of the books and little summaries of them so you know what you would get if you buy a book on Amazon. But the books are sold at Amazon and other retail locations.
Okay. Perfect. Well, and to spell your last name is Lameiro.
Right, Lameiro.
So, Dr. Lameiro. But anyhow, thanks so much for being with us today. Great conversation, as always, interesting and relevant and insightful. Just to remind our listeners, you're listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landreth, and I am co-hosting today with Sharron Engel. And we are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, which is broadcast from coast to coast, and on the AUN TV network, which is broadcast in California, and of course carried around the entire globe on Al Gore's amazing internet. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV. Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME.
The Conservative Commandos, the radio show and the television show, now thanks to AUN TV network, in addition to what we've historically been, the Conservative Commandos radio network. And of course, if you're not near a broadcast tower of either the radio or the television variety, you've always got Al Gore's amazing internet to bring you the Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landreth with Rick Manning, my co-host today, and I do want to introduce, we've got a great guest. Before I introduce Dr. Lameiro, I want to make sure that I let you know that if you've missed anything, or if you want to hear a rebroadcast or watch a rebroadcast, go to our website, ccrsnetwork.com or ccrshow.com. So we have, you can see his face on the screen. He's a friend of the show. He's a friend of conservatives, and he is a very interesting guest. That's why I like to have him back on, because of his analysis. But let me introduce him very quickly. I know that he doesn't need one, but if you're on the show, you get one anyhow. But bottom line is, Dr. Gerard Francis Lameiro he's an author, he's a political analyst, he's an expert on forecast models. He's the author of 5 books, and you will find as you look at his books that he's an optimist, not just because he's unrealistically optimistic, but he just sees the positive in things, and it turns out he tends to be right about that stuff. But at any rate, he's popular on television and radio talk shows, as I think you will. If you haven't heard him before here, you'll know why he is. Does literally hundreds of media interviews every year. He's often referred to as America's #1 political analyst and the Nostradamus of political elections. But he's got a great website. It's called Great News for America, and I would recommend that you check that out. He also, his most recent book, it's been out about a year, is More Great News for America. This is a guy who follows the basic rule, which is present good news. Don't be a dour sourpuss. And definitely, Dr. Lameiro is not that. So with that, Dr. Lameiro, welcome to the Conservative Commandos.
Oh, it's great to be with you. I appreciate the good introduction. And I might also add that, one of the characteristics of the left, the socialists, communists, anarchists, Marxists, etc., is that they basically have a negative message. They don't have an optimistic message because of the way they portray everything. They hate their opponents. They don't see it as a collegial kind of affair where we're all together. They divide and conquer. That's how they try to conquer anyway. And my vision is quite a bit different. I'm optimistic. I had the good opportunity to work for Ronald Reagan's campaign twice in 76 and 80, and I think his optimism rubbed off on me.
Fair enough. As I recall, you were able to cast a vote for him not only in the polls as a regular American, but as a member of the Electoral College.
Yes, I was a member of the Presidential Electoral College. You get to cast 2 votes. You get to cast the vote for the president, and I voted for Ronald Reagan. And I also got to vote for the vice president, which was George Herbert Walker Bush at the time, 1980.
Yeah. That was the very first election a presidential election I was able to vote in. And I, at the time, didn't fully appreciate what an unusual election it was. I was really excited about Ronald Reagan, but since it was my first election, I thought that every election I'd be that lucky. Turns out I wasn't. It's few and far in between of that kind of fellow. But I feel fortunate when you look at the papers. The papers would tell us that President Trump is unpopular, that people don't like him, they think he lacks the temperament, they think he lacks he's an extremist, all these different things. That's what the New York Times, the Washington Post would tell you. What CBS, MSNBC, those folks would tell you. So I'm going to ask you to tell us the truth.
Well, that's a great question. And I always like the biblical quotation, John 8:32, "The truth shall make you free." And I really believe that to be the case. That's kind of my quote I love. Because, when you do have the truth, you are free to move on with your life. But if you're being deceived, it's difficult to make good decisions. And truly, the truth in this case is that the folks on the left, the Democratic Party, which has morphed into a socialist-type party, basically are against the Constitution. I'm not going to call anything other than a spade a spade. These people don't like the Constitution. They don't like our history. They want to get rid of statues of Thomas Jefferson. I mean, these people are just down on this system, and the reason they're down on it is because they don't believe in freedom. They really believe in central control and command type economies. They want to run things. They think they're the elite. They think they know they have the answers. And Hayek, famous Hayek, the philosopher and economist, his book, The Fatal Conceit, is so true. These people have a fatal conceit because they think everything's great. AOC, for example, thinks Venezuela is a wonderful country and we should be like Venezuela. Those people are starving to death because they've ruined their infrastructure with socialism. And she would love to have socialism here.
It's not a natural disaster. It's not famine. It's a governmental disaster.
It's a philosophy failure. It's a failed philosophy.
Yeah. Ideas have consequences.
In fact, I call them the isms of failure. There's Marxism, socialism, communism, anachronism, anarchism, and I call those the isms of failure because they all result in the same effect: moral and economic bankruptcy. You not only get economic bankruptcy, but you also get moral bankruptcy, because the only way to do business in a socialist country is through corruption.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, if you look at the United States and how it went from being essentially 13 relatively insignificant colonies to becoming the preeminent superpower in the world, and then you look at how a very prosperous nation like Venezuela, one of the richest nations in the world, went from being that to, in very rapid order, becoming one of the poorest, most deprived nations in the world. It's about ideas in the final analysis.
It's also about power and not using it properly. Mm-hmm. That power concentrated in the hands of one person is used for that person's one benefit, but there's no way without a market to decide how you divvy up resources that they can be divvied up in an optimal way. Economics is all about managing scarce resources, as you know. And socialism just doesn't know how to manage resources because one person or one committee or one party just can't manage a huge economy with all the billions of decisions that are made every day.
That's the truth. Well, how do you think this all plays into Donald Trump? Because my sense of it is that he's doing a very good job. There are people who weren't sure how he would turn out as a president because he was new to politics. And, politicians often overpromise and underdeliver. But he's been a very interesting politician in that sense. And that is, it seems to me, he's delivering the things he said he was going to do.
He sticks to things. He believes in his principles. He believes in carrying out his word. He seems to have a lot of care for people. And the left is just beside itself because they were hoping to get, another Republican who just goes along with their agenda, which is for bigger and bigger government moving toward socialism. By the way, the word progressive in my book means progressing to socialism. And then the word socialism, as Lenin said, was really the prelude to communism. And I think a lot of them are actually closet communists too. And some of them will be out with you and tell you right straightforward today they're communists. They believe in it. Some of them are just straight socialists, somehow thinking that's better. They have this kind of warped sense that socialism means that you treat everybody nice and fair and all of that. And you don't make people wait. You just work. You give them a salary for doing nothing because that's a nice thing to do. But that's creates bankruptcy because as Margaret Thatcher said and it's quoted many times, sooner or later you run out of other people's money, and that's the problem with socialism.
There you go. Well, I've often referred to socialism as communism with a smile. But at any rate, we're up against a break, so we're going to take a quick break. I'm glad you're able to stick through the break with us because there's lots more to talk about. You're always interesting. But I do want to remind our listeners they're listening to Conservative Commandos. I'm George Landreth with Rick Manning, and we are coming to you on the Conservative Commandos radio network, broadcast all across this great nation from the sea to shining sea, and on the AUN TV network as well, and of course, always on Al Gore's amazing internet. Aren't you glad he invented that? We'll be right back.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Here's why. Dish has the nation's lowest TV price, along with an award-winning DVR that can skip commercials, record 8 shows at once, and get access to thousands of movies at your fingertips. Cable simply can't even compare. So the smart choice is to cut the cable and get Dish. Plus, you get all these great TV features, free HD DVR upgrade, free installation, and free movie channels. Say goodbye to cable and get more with Dish TV. 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. As an added bonus, you can switch to Dish now and receive a $50 Visa gift card. So call now and get Dish TV. Call 877-290-7764, 877-290-7764. That's 877-290-7764. Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification required. Cancellation fee, monthly equipment fees, and other restrictions apply. Promotion can change at any time.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos, the radio show and the television show, thanks to AUN TV Network. And of course, carried on Al Gore's amazing internet all over the world. I'm George Landreth with Rick Manning, and we are your Conservative Commandos hosts. I do want to remind you, if you want to hear a rebroadcast, just go to our website, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com. We've been talking with Dr. Gerard Francis Lameiro. He is, I'm going to ask him to make some predictions, so I'll tout the fact that he is often referred to as America's #1 political analyst and the Nostradamus of political elections. That may give you a clue as to what I might be coming up to ask him. But I will also point out that he accurately predicted a Trump victory long before pollsters and pundits gave him even a small chance of winning. And in fact, he correctly predicted every state that the then candidate Donald Trump won to carry the 2016 election. Many of those were big surprises. People would never have predicted it, but Dr. Lameiro did. So with that, welcome back to Conservative Commandos. And Doctor, I would like, if I could, to impose upon you to give us a prediction. I know it's a long time out. We're still basically, just under 2 years away from an election. The other side hasn't even picked their candidate yet. And so this is many political lifetimes away. But read some tea leaves for us. Tell us what they say.
Well, right now, I see Donald Trump getting over 360 electoral votes. And in fact, the position of the Democratic Party is so weak among the electorate that vote. There's a difference between taking a poll of registered voters and actually looking at likely voters who go out and vote. A lot of registered voters don't bother.
Or particularly with motor voter and things like that.
Yeah, but they still don't vote.
That's what I'm saying.
Anyway,
they're registered easily. In the old days, you used to actually have to go to trouble to register. Now they just do it automatically. So I would assume that you have fewer actual people voting as compared to those who are registered.
Yeah, it's a pretty major difference. Yeah. But anyway, what I wanted to say is I see him as getting over 360 electoral votes. I don't see any one of the 23 candidates, and maybe 25 when we're finished, getting new candidates in on the Democratic side, comes even close to beating him. And I'm talking about all the people, and even I've looked at, I read polls because I'm in the forecast business, and they're doing sort of something similar. But I still see them suffering from the 2016 problem that I don't think they're doing the polling the right way. Under every poll, there's an underlying model, and they superimpose roughly 1,000 phone calls on that model that they have, and they weight things, and they do different things. They have small sample corrections, all sorts of things they do. And in the final analysis, I don't think they're doing them the best possible way, and that's why I think they're usually wrong and I'm usually right. I had Brexit right, and I had every state that Trump carried correct in the election. And I think it's kind of, by the way, with the presidential election, you don't really care about the national polls in some sense, because it is not a national election.
Right, it's 50 individual state elections.
It's state elections, and in 2 states, Nebraska and Maine, it's actually down to the congressional district because they split the electoral votes that way. So if you put all of that together, it's 56 different elections, throwing in D.C. too. Mm-hmm. And you have to predict each one of those right if you're going to get the right electoral votes. And I had accurate electoral vote count. And I've gotten as many in one election, 49 out of 50 states correct, which is really pretty good.
That's very good.
I haven't gotten 50 out of 50 yet, but I've been pretty close. And right now, Trump is leading, and if the Democrats continue to do the things they're doing, Colorado's going to come in play, New Hampshire's going to come in play. This may be a blowout election if the Democrats keep sticking their foot in their mouth, because the American people don't like what's going on in the Democratic Party.
That makes sense to me. How about some states? How do you see a state like Nevada? Is that a state that could be in play?
Yes.
Because that's a state that he did not win in 2016.
That's one of the in-play states. So that's why this could be a real blowout election. But even if he gets 300, right now I have him at 367. I have the Democrat at 151. A lot of that is actually California.
Right.
And
probably California and New York, right?
Yeah, those are like almost...
I'm assuming California, New York, and Illinois.
Yeah.
And that's probably 2/3 of what they're going to get, or maybe more. I don't know.
So at any rate, the situation is that he's looking like he's got a landslide. It's looking like it could be a blowout landslide, close to like 1984 with Reagan. It could be very large blowout, because basically he's doing a good job. You're going to expect to see, I'll make this prediction, that a lot of the leftist media and those who are influenced by the leftist media are going to start putting out stories about how terrible those tariffs are and how terrible the economy is. And we're probably not going to see continued growth the way it's been growing. Expect everything to be terrible. That's how they talk.
So who you gonna believe? Their lion eyes, or excuse me, your lion eyes, or their, that's the idea of, who you gonna believe, me or your own eyes? And I think most Americans will know if the economy's helping them or not.
Well, they know because whether or not their child who just graduated from college got a job. They know if their neighbor down the block just got a job after being laid off during the Obama years, and that now he's got 2 or 3 job offers. They know it because they have practical information around them every day. Right. They also look at their checkbooks and see how long is the money lasting and things like that. Very practical stuff.
Right.
And I wrote something about 25 years ago called The 10 Laws for Winning Presidential Elections. It wasn't a book because I didn't think enough people would buy it as a book to write a book on it. But people who run for president sometimes use it. And when they follow the 10 laws, they usually do well. If they don't follow the 10 laws, they usually don't do well. Dole followed them for a while and did well, but then he veered off. I think his consultants pushed him in a different direction, and he wound up losing to Clinton in '96.
Yeah.
I think that was a great mistake. And in fact, Bob Woodward mentioned me in my 10 laws in a book he wrote on the 1996 election.
Interesting. Well, I'm assuming that Hillary probably didn't follow very many of those laws.
I think she followed one of them.
Fair enough. Well, we've only got about a minute and a half, but if I could, maybe we could delve just into something a little more personal with you and talk about some healthcare policy and how it might matter to you, and kind of some of the things that you're, if you will, up against.
Well, I've been super duper healthy my entire life. At least it seemed like. I rarely went to a doctor, rarely got any benefit from my health insurance premiums. And a few months ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 renal cell carcinoma. That's kidney cancer that has metastasized to the lungs. And I didn't feel any pain, didn't have any symptoms. But if you look at a CAT scan of my lung, it looks like one of those snow globes turned upside down, and you see all these little like snowflakes. Those are like cancer cells in my lungs, and they're flooded. And you can't do surgery. It does not respond to chemotherapy. It does not respond to radiation. You can't cut out your lungs because you need to breathe. So it turns out that this particular diagnosis I got was almost a guaranteed fatal diagnosis a year ago. But believe it or not, Donald Trump and his FDA lead, the person who's running the FDA, he made a big push to basically approve drugs that had high potential, even though they like to take years and years to be double checked, triple checked, quadruple checked. But meanwhile, people are dying while that happens. And so he decided to cut the bureaucracy and help the people live. Well, guess what? I'm one of those people, because the drugs I'm taking were not approved until April of last year in his administration and his FDA. And if I am saved by these drugs and I'm one of the ones cured, I may write a book on how Trump saved my life.
There you go. That makes a lot of sense. What I would say, our time's up, but I do want to remind our listeners, in this case, I would request that our listeners remember you in their prayers.
Thank you very much.
I believe in the power of prayer, and miracles are always welcome. So, you made some great points today. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And I just thank you for being a strong voice and speaking out and letting people know what the truth is.
Well, I have a lot more books I'd like to write, so I'm hoping I survive this.
Well, good. I have a lot more of your books I'd like to read. So we're on the same page on that one.
That's great.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much. And just remind our listeners, this is the Conservative Commandos. We will be right back after these messages, but just appreciate you listening and watching. And remember Dr. Lameiro in your prayers.
Thank you.